So, was this episode a sequel to The Birds? Hello interwebs and welcome to my review of the 6th episode of the 12th series of Doctor Who Praxeus. So after the crazy bonkers mind-blowing episode that was Fugitive of the Judoon last week, I have to say this episode can't help but feeling like a little bit of a disappointment, and I guess, like I said, that is kind of off the back of comparing it to last week's episode, which was kind of crazy. This one, it felt very standard. It felt very run-of-the-mill kind of Doctor Who episode. There was nothing really phenomenal or memorable about it, but nothing really that stood out as terribly egregious or awful or even like something that just made me like really hate it or despise it. It was just like, yeah, this was an episode that happened, which in the long run, in a lot of ways, kind of makes it one of the more worse episodes of Doctor Who. Like, for example, there are episodes of Doctor Who that I remember watching and I think they were fun. Like there's a David Tennant episode that has like a werewolf in it that I remember enjoying, but I just have completely forgotten and don't really remember any and don't really ever think about it at any point. Whereas episodes like, I don't know, Orphan 55, or even like terrible episodes of different Doctors runs, I remember a lot more. So there is something to be said that even if you're gonna make a bad episode, make it really bad. Whereas this one just kind of felt okay. And I don't have anything terribly rip-roaringly amazing to say about it, but nothing really truly atrocious to say about it either. I have a few thoughts here and there that I'll get into, but overall, this episode was fine. A little bit of a letdown considering what it was coming off of the back of, but that's not necessarily a fault of the episode in and of itself. It's just unfortunate where it's placed in the series as a whole. But I do have a couple thoughts to say on the episode, and I'll get those out of the way. I did like the concept that this episode started off with having all the companions off doing their own thing. Now, unfortunately, as the episode continued and those storylines converged, we kind of didn't really get a lot of payoff to a lot of them. Like, for example, Ryan going to meet that travel girl and like dealing with her stuff in Peru and the pollution of the river didn't really pay off in any interesting way. Like, that girl kind of sticks around for the rest of the episode, but she doesn't really do anything memorable. In fact, I almost completely forgot she was there other than a few lines here or there. So it was just kind of disappointing to see those bits and pieces of this companion storylines get lost in the shuffle. But like I said, I like the concept of them off doing their own things and kind of being separated at the start of this episode. I thought that was a unique way to kind of get us into seeing how each companion was going to investigate, do their own thing, kind of figure things out on their own without the Doctor. And I thought that was fun. It just, like I said, didn't really pay off into anything ultimately memorable. The only extraneous storyline outside of the main plot that did actually have any strength to it was the Jake and Adam, the astronaut and the cop storyline. I thought that did have a strong emotional weight to it that even in the few scenes those two characters had throughout the episode actually paid off pretty well and actually had a few decent emotional moments. Like the moment where Graham goes and talks to Jake on the beach, and Graham kind of has this moment with Jake where Jake says, do you know what it's like to be married to someone who is so amazing and memorable? And we kind of get that subtle reminder that Graham is still dealing with the loss of his wife. It was not beat us over the head with it, but it was something that made me go, oh, you hit me right in the feels there. That was a very, very strong moment, and it allowed me to resonate with the Jake character a lot more through Graham and having known his emotional journey. So the Adam and Jake stuff I thought worked really well. The payoff at the end of the episode with them kind of reconciling and realizing that they can work together and that Jake doesn't have to be so intimidated by Adam and his impressive career was unique and interesting and touching. You don't really see that too often where one person is more intimidated by the other person's career. Career? Wow, I'm stuck on the queer part. Their career. Yeah, normally we see that in the dynamic of a man and a woman. Like if a woman's career is doing really well, then the man may feel emasculated or things like that. So it was nice to see that in a new context in an LGBTQ relationship. And I thought that was a really nice touchstone for this episode. I also have to say the Praxis mystery was interesting, and I liked the twist that it kind of had to deal with pollution. We're getting a lot of environmental messaging, especially in this series and last series between Arachnids in the UK and Orphan 55, which honestly I think we need. As much as Orphan 55 was kind of beat you over the head with it, this episode was a little bit subtler in that messaging, but I don't mind that this is a repeated theme throughout the series, that we need to pay attention to the environment because, I mean, look at Australia. It's quite literally on fire. So I actually think that that's an important message, and I'm fine with it kind of being a repeated one throughout the series, though I know some people will find it a bit repetitive. But for me, that worked just fine. But that being said, the sense of urgency in this episode, everyone's like, we don't have a lot of time, we need to get moving, we gotta get doing, figure stuff out. I didn't really feel that. Like, I know that Adam had this infection and he needed to be cured ASAP, but the rest of the episode, which was like, we need to solve this right now, didn't really match up with what was going on. Like, I didn't really get a sense that this was like a global pandemic problem. I did like the reveal at the end that it was a problem brought to Earth by the aliens, kind of mirroring how we kind of don't think about pollution. We kind of just dump it on people and don't really think about the ramifications of it. I thought that was a good mirroring of the thematic idea of pollution. But again, it didn't really give me this deep sense of like, yeah, we need to solve this right now. But that being said, I did think the Praxis like infection, the like cool crystalline disgusting rock formation that appears on people, was a very cool design and a very intriguing idea for an infection. But ultimately, I just didn't really get a sense of like, oh yeah, this needs to be solved right now, other than like obviously not wanting Adam to die. But I just really wasn't hooked enough into that mystery to really feel the stakes of it, as it were. And the only other thing that I really think I'll mention in this episode is I really like that Yaz took the impetus to go and do something on her own. That she's like, I want to go back and, find this artifact. And then she gets brought down into the bottom of the Indian Ocean, and that it was kind of her impetus to solve the end mystery of this episode. And I wish that had been a little bit more rooted in her character. It kind of just felt like something that she wanted to do to move the plot along and didn't really have any sort of emotional character development for her. But I liked that Yaz was the one that got to be the one moving the plot forward, because Yaz ultimately is the companion that often gets relegated to the side for the Doctor, Ryan, or Graham. So it was nice that she got something to do this episode, but it was just a bit disappointing that it wasn't really rooted in any character moment for her. It just kind of felt like something that she went off to do. Sort of the larger problem with Yaz in general, in that she doesn't really have a lot of character development at this point. We get a lot for Graham, we get a decent amount for Ryan, but really nothing for Yaz. And so it was kind of a wasted opportunity to sort of give her something here in this episode, but not really rooted in anything tangible that would have a longer lasting effect on her. As for the rest of it, there's small little brief character moments throughout this episode that I really enjoyed. Like, I love the Doctor saying, oh, this thought tickles. It made her feel like an alien in a really cool way. I liked Yaz saying like, oh, I thought I had discovered a planet. And then the other girl being like, oh, we're at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. That sort of like juxtaposition of how like jaded Yaz is having explored and done a bunch of stuff already, and this new girl kind of being new and excited by everything going on. But like I said, ultimately this episode does have its flaws. It does have a few things that it does really well, but ultimately it's just kind of forgettable. And maybe sometimes that's even a bigger sin than being really great or really worse. It's just being there. But I don't regret that I spent an hour watching it, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts were. Did you love this episode? Did you hate it? Did you just kind of end up lackluster on it just like I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for all of my Doctor Who or Star Trek Picard reviews, or my analysis of geek culture and how we can become better humans through geek culture. That's all right here on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe not to miss any of that. And if you want to help make this channel even better, please consider giving to my Patreon, because I just moved and it really helps me out financially. But regardless of if you subscribe or give to my Patreon, I'm just glad that you stopped by. And as always, I hope that you live long and prosper. And special thanks to my commander level and above Patreons: Stefan Schuhart, BBD, Boyd and Marybeth Earl, Michael McGee, Lal Lindley, Wellington Marcus, Munir Amlani, Mari Nekar, and Marika Kuyechin.